Welcome back to another episode, everybody. My name's Emery Wolf. Joining me is
Nick Lamb.
And we are just two camera guys, a show where we're going to talk all things hockey. You know about my mind, right? All things camera.
Just a Memorial Cup rundown for 2 hours.
I legit have my TV on pause, just waiting for the third period of Game 3 in Edmonton. Yeah, that's classic. We got a few things on the go. Nick sent me a list of things, but I think first, Nick, we should talk about the Canon has released some stuff for the new R1. I can't remember if we actually talked about it or not, but then Canon Rumors has put out some more specs with it. So have you had a look at that at all, Nick? Do you know?
Yes. Yeah. So we for sure talked about it in person. I can't remember if we talked about it on the show. I don't think we did. But my takeaway of their news report is this just sounds like total PR written, doesn't mean anything kind of nonsense. Is that not read to you?
Well, yeah, it is their, I don't know, their press release thing. I don't know.
But it's just like new image processor.
Doesn't give you any
proving
details.
AF. It doesn't say any specs. It's just, so it's using, here, I'll even read a little bit of it here. This camera employs the newly developed image processor DIGIC accelerator in addition to the pre-existing processor DIGIC-X. The new image processing system composed of these processors and a new CMOS. It's not saying anything. It's just saying it sounds like it's a slightly improved version of a camera that this write-up has me interested not at all.
Well, they tell you it's better. But that's a good report. You know what, Nick? Let's make a promise right now. This show is going to be better in the next episode. No, though not this one. We're sending our pre-announcement out the next show.
No. The next one is going to be better. And you know what we're going to improve, Emery?
What are we going to improve?
Everything. How? It's just going to be new. I'm not going to tell you how we're going to do it, but it's going to be new. And we're going to build on all of our pre-existing stuff. We're still going to have our intro, our little bit of banter, a little talk back and forth. And then
I'm probably going to screw up an intro at least, too. I feel like I haven't hit the intro in 5 minutes.
Well, you actually did a really good job of the intro today. You hit the music right. You brought in all the stuff correct.
Yeah. Go figure. Every dog gets its day, eh? All right.
But
back to the R1. Canon Rumors released some more specs on it here, Nick. I don't know if you've actually seen this. So can you see that on the screen?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got it on my. It's funny. I've got the exact same screen up here. So you showed that to me. It's a little bit more helpful, but it's there's nothing that's really exciting here. Is there anything that's exciting you about this? It just sounds like minor changes and everything's supposed to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I think there's going to be certain people that get pumped about certain things. Like quad pixel autofocus is great. But other cameras have it. The 24 megapixels, other cameras have it. They don't have the BSI, which I think is like that backlit thing. So it should have slightly better low light performance.
Which is nice.
Yeah. Improved autofocus. That feels like a software update you could put into any camera.
Yeah. And now their autofocus is pretty good as is. Now, if I was to have a complaint, it does get a little bit too confused as soon as somebody turns around. I wish that it would hang on the person more. That doesn't seem that hard to figure out. Oh, that person turned around. We still want them in focus.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody else in the frame except for somebody in the super far distant background or something like that.
Yeah, and supposedly that's going to be better. We don't know how. We don't know why. We just know it's going to be better.
Even what I would actually like, I find it hard to keep it in focus sometimes. So I wish that it could realize if your finger's on the screen, that's where you want the focus, even in the smart mode, that it would have like a quick override with that. That would be a nice.
It's got this eye control autofocus, which I believe they put into the R3 as well. So that's like where you look at focus. Supposedly it is extremely good.
Now that, I'm assuming that's stills. That doesn't sound like a video thing.
You are probably correct. The other thing the nerds are going to get excited about is a full-size HDMI port. So they're saying that based on the photos that are actually just below in this article that we'll maybe dissect a little bit after. And then, the dual card things, which like people get so excited about it. I've never had a card fail, but apparently it's a thing, and professionals really like not to do that.
But this is what I shoot my videos on. I've got a CF Express adapter, and it goes to my SSD drive. Do you use that kind of stuff, or are you still shooting on your?
I still shoot
your
cards. And that's the other thing too. I know lots of people who do that, shoot to drives.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, tether. Even if you're shooting stills, like tether your camera.
Oh yeah, I guess if you were not out in the field, you could tether to a laptop or iPad or something. Yeah. Do you have that iPad feature where you can show a client your photos right on an iPad while you're taking them?
So I believe all the R's, like you can wirelessly go to anything. I have done it, but like I did it like once when I got the camera, and that was it. Haven't used it since.
Yeah, fair enough. I could see it being valuable in a big corporate situation where you got a director of marketing or something like that is there and wants to see the photos. But other than that rare instance, yeah.
So the pictures here too, I guess it was out at the Monaco Grand Prix, and people were looking at it, taking pictures of it. What I think is really funny is he put this like really shabby 50
it's got the FD lens on it. I love it.
Whatever. But one of the things people were looking at, it's hard to see, but you can actually see the full HDMI there. So people were excited that it was going to have a full-size HDMI, because apparently HDMI mini breaks all the time. But again,
when do you ever hooked, like, when are you using HDMI?
Well, I got my HDMI hooked up right now, right? But that's the other thing. We have done 50 shows where I've hooked that thing in, not a single problem. I've never broke it. Probably tonight I'll break it.
Yeah.
I'm plugging it. But like it really hasn't been a problem. So again, for regular people, I don't think this is doing it for them. You need to be a pro that's making, $100,000 a year plus on this stuff. You need to be Peter McKinnon.
Mm-hmm. I still haven't seen a camera that has made me want to upgrade from my C200 yet. Mainly because of those audio ports. I love those audio ports. I don't know. I don't think you're a huge fan of the audio ports, but
again, I think there's too many solutions out there for that for people to use, and that's why nobody cares. But I can, as much as I give you a hard time about it, I can kind of relate that it's adding one more thing to it. I don't remember if that R70 had audio ports. The cinema.
The R70, I don't think it does. But I could be stand corrected.
Yeah,
I've seen it once in real life, but I can't recall.
If I went back on Canon rumors here, there's like a thing talking about what to be expected in cinema, and I think there's more coming.
Well, with Blackmagic's stuff, at a certain point, they're going to have to release some type of mirrorless cinema camera that kind of competes with the Blackmagic stuff, similar to the C200, and maybe then I'll get excited about it, but I don't know. Till that happens.
Yeah. Just comparing some stuff here too, Nick. So the R1 to the R3, I've got the R3 up on here. Does that look any different to you?
It looks exactly the same to me, doesn't it?
It looks very similar, apparently. The R1 is better somehow.
So now here's the question though, and I should know the answer to this, but I don't. Does the R3 shoot raw video? Because the R1 does shoot raw video, which is cool.
Just scrolling down here,
That's something that does excite me.
12-bit
it is
raw
12-bit raw.
At 6K, it is only doing a measly 60 frames per second. So
which is
I mean, maybe you want that 120. Maybe you really want that 120 that is coming here.
So there's instances.
We'll see what the bit rate is too, right? Like the bit rate on the R1 could be quite a bit more too. So, or less.
Well, 12 bits a lot. 14-bit would be a lot of memory that you'd be eating up.
Yeah, it's raw. Either way you look at it.
So you know what's interesting? The H.265. That's something we should do another show about, because H.265 seems to be finally taking over H.264.
Why do you say finally?
Well, it was a bit of a joke of a codec when it first came out. I thought it was a little bit buggy. It wasn't really working the way it was supposed to. So I just stuck with H.264 for years because I could never seem to trust H.265.
Why is 265 better?
This is why we need to do a show on it some other time when I can do more research. But it compresses it better, so you'll get a higher quality video with lower size.
There you go.
Yeah,
and that's even in their specs, going from 8-bit to 10-bit. If people are out there carrying out there.
Oh, so their H.265 does 10-bit and H.264 does 8-bit. That's a big difference. Have you tried to color anything shot in RAW or, one of those very muted images in 8-bit compared to 10-bit?
Yes.
It's a big difference.
I've actually tried to. So the old Canon 5D Mark II, which what I used to shoot on all the time, I actually loaded a, what is it called? The color company. Whatever it is. Anyways,
the Spider or whatever?
No. Like Cinecolor or something like that.
Oh, okay. One of the profiles that does the...
Yeah, so I loaded a profile. Yeah, so it's fake, and then you go in and you put the LUT in after, and it was such a cumbersome thing, and honestly, it didn't make anything better.
I have the same thing with my 1DC. It's only 8-bit 4K, and when you shoot on whatever you shoot, even if it's one of those muted profiles, man, it's hard to color because it's only 8-bit. 12-bit's so much, even 12-bit compared to 10-bit, I've found is a lot easier to color. But 10-bit's my personal cutoff now. I'm not a huge fan of shooting 8-bit if I can avoid it.
Yeah. But I thought you always shot RAW, though, too.
I do. So this is my current problem that's going to need addressing pretty soon. I should have addressed it by now with my setup, but I shoot RAW all the time on my C200. But if I need a second body on an interview at the same time, it gets problematic because my second body is my 1DC, and then I have to match to my 1DC but then I'm making my quality lower because I'm matching. You have to kind of match to the crappiest camera that you got. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So my current plan is to either buy a second C200 or when I upgrade, get a B body that'll match in a better way.
Yeah. I just want to clarify too. So when you do that, I believe, is it 12-bit RAW that one does, the C200?
The C200 does 12-bit RAW, but when at 24 frames or 30 frames, but once you go to 60, then it goes down to 10-bit RAW.
Yeah, and H.265 and H.264 packaging things in MP4. So basically, whatever color profile you're using on your camera, that's how it's processed out.
Yeah, so you're going to get locked in unless they have one of those raw light images. But even then, you're not.
Even then, you're still trying to color it from something that is, I'm going to say, polished or finished into a format where, so like 12-bit raw, you're getting like twice the amount of flexibility from a 10-bit H.265 MP4.
Yeah, because depending on when you go into your settings, for example, so when I shoot 12-bit RAW, my preference is I'll try to shoot at either 320 ISO or 400 ISO, because you can literally change the ISO in post, so that if I overexpose it a bit, I can literally reduce my ISO and bring that back. But if I was to shoot at 100 ISO in RAW and I overexpose it, I don't have as much room to bring it back, so I'm kind of pigeonholing myself in. But if I shoot higher than 400, it starts to get noisier quicker. So actually, I tend to shoot at like 320, because then I found that that's kind of the sweet spot for having, I can go up without introducing too much noise, or go down, still save the file.
I actually feel like there is legit science to what you're saying. Like every camera, every lens has sweet spots, right?
Oh, are you talking lens or talking camera?
Both cameras and lenses, they have sweet spots.
They sure do. And Canon, I was such a nerd when Canon first came out with their C200. I think it's like their white paper or whatever, where they go into the massive specs, and they would show the latitude at the different ISOs. So you would actually have more latitude at certain ISOs. So you'd get better blacks at certain ISOs and better highlights at different ISOs. I can't remember, but it was interesting because it would show the spread, and you could literally dial in your ISO specific to the type of light you were using.
Yeah. Do you know what? That went way deeper into codecs and things.
I don't even know what
I ever thought. Yeah, black.
Yeah, the R1 sounds crappy. That was our whole point.
Yeah, like do you know what it feels like? It feels like a GoPro, where they just make like some weird incremental upgrade, and yeah, thanks Canon.
That is it. I love it. That's our short right there, Emery.
Yeah.
The R1 GoPro.
But now that we're talking about all this like weird technical stuff, you're about to start a shoot, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you start?
Oh yeah. So this is something I wanted to talk about, because you just had a big shoot this past week, or was it this week?
Friday.
On Friday, yeah. So I kind of wanted to talk about our differences. So maybe each step, I wouldn't even mind us going through it step by step and see how we're similar and different.
How do you even get a job? Because you're still a freelancer.
Yeah. So mine's the worst. Mine's a lot. So I operate like a plumber for the most part.
Mine's the worst.
It kind of is my way. Is not great. But so my business model is very similar to your local plumber or electrician's business model, where they'll go into somebody's house, do a good job, get a referral, get another job off of that. That person recommends them, they get another job, and then the first guy needs something else, or the first person needs something else, they go back to them. So my model is literally the plumber model, which is not, kind of goes against a lot of the advertising stuff that I talk about and that I research and learn for the most part, but
you also get a lot of repeat like customers, essentially.
Yeah, there's a lot of repeat and a lot of referral stuff. So that's not the best business model, but it works for me, and it works for somebody who, so this isn't the question you asked, but this kind of goes into a lot of almost corporate stuff where I don't have the dream of owning the world's largest video production company, where I've got 20 employees and I'm running a giant business. I actually like making videos and doing it the way that I do it, and I don't feel like I need to have the super large company, and I'm kind of happy being an employee in my business, if that makes sense.
Yeah. For me, like, because I do work for an organization, so like we have like strategic conversations at our office, and we try to meet things by that and pick like the best avenues for it. So basically, if my organization doesn't have me to create this stuff for them, our organization would hire a guy like Nick.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's how I get a lot of my jobs. So, for example, I'll just use an example for one I'm working on right now, or that I will be working on soon. Construction company wants to update their promotional video. So, what's the first step that I do is, typically I'll go in and I'll get a transcript of their existing video. So if they've got an existing video, I'll get a transcript of it, write it all out, or get ChatGPT to write it out for me or something like that. So I've got the transcript, and then literally give that back to them so that they've got a script of their video, so that we've got something to start as our base. And if they don't have a script, I will gladly work with them to come up with a script, or a lot of people want to come up with their own script too. So that's an option as well. But it's nice to at least write out what we want to say, and then there's options on how to say it that we can get into after.
Yeah, that's our approach too. So a lot of times I don't have to do that. I can skip it. If I know I'm doing everything, or I know where I'm going to get everything from, I can sort of skip those steps. But for the shoot on Friday, just for an example, we did do that. I was working with other people where this is going into one of our major training offerings, I guess. So it was, okay, let's take what we have. Let's transcribe it out. What do we like? What do we not like? And go from there. And then we also did some like prep sheets that basically had like, okay, now what do we need to say? And there was 3 sections on it. I'm trying to remember, but it was essentially like, where can we go? What do we absolutely have to say? And what's the legal requirement stuff that actually backs that up?
Oh, that's interesting. The legal requirement stuff.
Yeah, right. Like for us, again, we're educating people, so it needs to be sort of like, you need to do this because of this.
So you need to have a standard and see what the quote unquote textbook says.
Yeah,
about
and
that.
it also helps me shooting, because then I know like, okay, well, this is what we're actually trying to get out of this part. Friday, for an example, too. So we were shooting interviews, talking to other people. So we also use that as a guideline to form questions. How do we get them to say this legislation, or to talk about that legislation? What kind of questions are we going to ask? And does that question return, like, can we expect the answer to be along the lines of what is in that document?
Yeah, though that makes sense. I'll do almost literally the same thing, where if it's an interview situation, so if a CEO is speaking, it's way better, in my opinion, to have a script. We can throw it on the teleprompter. They can read it. And it's very precise. But if you're doing it in an interview situation where it's the person's not working off of a script and you're just getting them to tell their story, I do the same thing where I'll reverse engineer. Okay, what do we want to say? And then let's come up with a question that can get that answer. And I don't see that. It sounds manipulative, but it's really not, because you're not putting words in the person's mouth and you're not forcing them to say anything they don't want to say. And I'll say that right up front. Like, you say whatever is the truth and what you need to say. I'm just going to ask you questions so that it'll make sense in the format of the video.
Yeah. Do you know the way I look at it is it's like reverse engineering.
It is reverse engineering. It's exactly reverse
And
engineering.
yeah, right. Like, and ultimately you're trying to figure out the way to your problem to get to the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too is when you do ask people questions, they don't answer it the way you think they are. Like almost 100% of the time they don't. And then you're kind of like, oh, that's not really what I wanted. But you look back at your things and you're kind of like, oh, no, that does kind of fit though. And then you can decide whether you're like, you know what, that's good, I'll leave it. Or I'm going to maybe ask this question in another way to see if they'll answer the same question differently.
Yeah, you have to be able to ask the question another way. And in an interview format, we're kind of jumping ahead to the shooting, but this is just something to keep in mind.
That's how you know we're camera guy.
Yeah. Is a part of it, more than a part of it, is just being a good listener during that moment where you're not thinking about your camera settings and you're not thinking, you're paying attention to the way the light's hitting the person, but you're really focused in on what they're saying because that content that you're getting is going to make or break it more than anything.
Yeah. I'm going to jump back to the scripting again. So
yeah, let's do that. We got more stuff there.
Yeah. When I script stuff for our organization, I think it's a lot easier for me because I generally know what we want to say. I know where to gather the information for what I want to say. So for me, it's pretty easy, I think. When you're doing a corporate video, Nick, how do you gather that? How would you piece that together?
So for the most part, most businesses will have a marketing person there. So similar to somebody in your role that really knows their business kind of inside and out and has direct access to their director or CEO or somebody that can't answer any of those types of questions. So for the most part, they'll script the content, but there's times where I will come in and help guide the direction to go, okay, so we'll have the interview here, they'll say this, and then we're going to need 10 or 15 B-roll shots to put in over there. And most of the businesses, depending on budget, can have the option to go whatever way they want. They can, if they want to go stock, they can go stock. If they want me to film it, then I can film it. I like to think that when I film the B-roll, it's a lot more authentic and it's a better product at the end.
Yeah. I like to think like for B-roll, if you want to connect with people a little bit more, having like myself shoot it as opposed to using stock, I think that's how we make our decisions a lot of time. Like, how emotional is this? How much do we want to drag into this that we're a provincial association? How much do we want people to be like, oh yeah, that's Saskatchewan, or like, oh, I know those guys, and connect to it? And then that's how that decision's sort of made for us.
Yeah, so depending on the project, I can be super involved with the script, or people can have it in their mind. But then it comes down to during that pre-planning stage, where are we going to film it is a question. Who's going to be in it? Do we need any of the background extras? Who's going to provide the background extras? Who's going to provide the person talking? If they don't have somebody that's going to talk, like all of those questions need to get answered. But for the most part, if I can at all help it, I would like to go to the location ahead of time, because there's usually some crazy fan or super loud noise that the marketing person probably hasn't thought of or considered, that there's a different room, or the room's too small. I run into that a lot more than you would think too, where the room is just too small to make it look cinematic.
Yeah. I don't deal with location as much. Basically, like, so locations for us are going to say like pre-built in for the most part. If we're going to go talk to a construction company, we're either going to their construction company office or we're going to a site and both those things are going to look like those things regardless of what I do. So I don't worry about it that much. Any like decision. The other thing too is I don't really get the time to just go out and like drive to Saskatoon to go look at rooms, you know? So it's like,
yeah.
So I got to kind of come up with things on the fly, which is good and bad, but whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens a lot too. You can usually turn off some kind of fan or refrigerator or whatever's in the room or HVAC system. I know on the last shoot I did, it looks amazing. I'm really pumped. There's this huge room, tons of windows. It was an office space, bunch of people working around. It looked like a very natural working environment. And we got there first thing in the morning. The CEO was showing up at noon or 1 or something like that. And we got the HVAC all turned off. And guess what happened? We're scheduled to get turned off, and it never did get turned off. And the CEO showed up, and we just had to roll with it.
I've actually had the entire power go out at a place on me. Like, we're thankfully, like we were still trying to utilize like practical light, so a window source. And then I had some lights on, like, so a window on this side, and then my lights on this side, and sort of trying to match that. And then, yeah, all of a sudden just,
oh my.
Down, and it was like, and mid-answer too. And honestly, like the guy just carried on with his answer, which was fine. And then we kind of laughed about it after, and it's like, okay, whatever. I'm like, I guess let's just shoot with this. It's fine. I'll try to deal with it after. And so then you find your ways like later to cut around it or whatever. And then I think even too at the end, we actually did put like a little bit of an outtake, the lights shutting off. And I think it was my voice too, going like, well, that's a first. So I kind of had some fun with it.
Killer in this one, because this was meant to have the CEO pop. So I had super diffused front light, looked awesome. Nice.
Well, dude, all your lights run on batteries though?
Well, except for my backlight in this one. So my backlight was still a tungsten light, because I still don't like the look of a LED backlight. So when I really want to make an interview pop, you can actually tell how much I'm if I'm really bringing it to the show if I've got my nice tungsten backlight out, because it pops differently. It really does.
That's funny. Yeah, I would think that the LEDs would do better at that, but
it's like the refraction.
They would be so harsh on your face, the LEDs, right?
Well, because it's a backlight that I still use as a tungsten light. It just seems to refract around the person better. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old school.
Who knows? Maybe Halo's a little bit or something.
Yeah. Sorry, we're not even talking about filming yet. We're still on pre-production.
You actually mentioned too a bunch of things, getting, people together, props together, whatever else. My only thing with that is like these logistics is what I call it all the time. Mm-hmm. Usually it's just like when I do it again, it's written out. Always write things out. It'll be like, if it's a scripted thing, it's like scene 1, what is said, what needs to be seen, items that are needed, mm-hmm. and then repeat that over for each thing. If it's an interview thing, it's a lot less of that, but it's like more like, okay, like what do we need for things that will put this into context? So I'm going to use this as an example. Didn't do it because we were kind of doing everything late, but on Friday we go to the interview and talking about it in the car on the way up with Amber, the other communications person I work with. And Amber was like, well, like maybe we should do the Sportsplex. Like he played hockey and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I go out there and literally just iPhone stuff just to get it done. Mm-hmm. But yeah. And then when we do the interview, they're talking about playing hockey and football. And like, I literally have a football in this field all by itself. Some kid left a football out there. It was like magic how it worked out. But
wow.
So you can't like plan it, but you can, right? Like had I actually written down before, I probably would have been like sports stuff.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything for logistics you want to talk about?
So a lot of the logistics in my world come down to the marketing people for the company will tend to take care of most of that. So there's very few logistics that I'll end up having to really work out on my end, other than prepping all of my gear, which takes a lot longer than most people would kind of consider. Well, it's prep and wrap, depending, as long as I wrap stuff properly. But for me, it's actually picking which gear I'll need for the shoot. You know, do I need my Steadicam type of rig? Do I need a giant slider? Which tripod do I need? How many lights do I need to bring? All that kind of stuff. Teleprompter. So it's just a matter of prepping up all that gear.
Yeah. The other like prep thing too, I think I should mention, because I probably deal with it more than just hearing you, but actually like coordinating interviews. So this isn't that complicated. It's really just like calling, asking people, emails, whatever it is, to make sure things are all set up. But the one thing I will say too is like when I'm dealing with people, and particularly outside of our office, like trying to think the right way to put it, but like the care I put into that is like a little bit higher. So like if I'm interviewing you, Nick, for an example, you know, my email's like, hey, Nick, you know, a week before, just want to make sure you're still good. This is the time. This is what we're doing. If you have any questions, let me know. Here's my phone number. If you need anything you need, I will answer your email before anyone else. Send. So just those, like, again, I think it's relationship stuff is really what it is. So like, and you only have so much time to try to build that. So kind of try to start that and make them feel like they are the most important person, because they are the most important person, right?
And so it depends. So if I'm doing a more documentary style piece where it's going to get emotional in the interview, I will either establish a relationship with the person before the shoot, or budget in the time that we are going to just, you know, I'm going to have my lights set up and we're literally just going to chat and chill and kind of get to know each other over 30 minutes prior to the shoot, if it's going to get emotional like that, because they just need to feel comfortable. And man, it's hard to feel comfortable on somebody that you just met and they're racing, setting up lights and racing audio, and they don't actually sit down and talk with you before.
Yeah, right. Like, so again, Friday, Amber comes with me to the shoot, and that's while I'm setting up, she's talking to these people. Now, I don't think she's thinking that in her head, but like that's half the reason I bring her, is just like, so that you can talk to her, fill that awkward void that I'm not filling, because my mind's on other things and I'm trying to get those going.
Yeah.
So teamwork makes the dream, as the kids say.
I had one time where I just couldn't seem to get that comfortable level. And we literally just left the lights up, everything, and was like, have you had breakfast yet? We went and got breakfast and then came back, and it was fine.
Nice. I want to leave pre-production, but I also want to say one more thing. So pre-production is where you also really set your focus, in my mind. So, and again, I'm going to use this shoot as an example. So we transcribed everything. We wrote it out. What do we want to change? And I specifically had a meeting with two other staff of ours, and like, okay, you guys, this meeting, throw everything at the wall, every idea, anything you want. I don't care what it is. If it's semi-related, whatever, I'm going to write it down. Wrote it down. So I had like a 5-page thing for just like one video, right? And I think they kind of liked that. It was kind of fun just throwing ideas out, even if they were like completely garbage and they knew we wouldn't do it anyways, but just, again, writing out, keeping it down.
Yeah, don't be so hard on your ideas, Emery. Some of them were good.
Yeah, sometimes. So then what I did with that after, and again, I was very clear, this is the meeting. After this meeting, we're having another meeting, and that second meeting is where decisions are made. And so I go through it all, basically organized it into things, and here's the organization. What do we need to take out? What do we leave in? And we had all sorts of things as like ideas, visuals, quotes, things like that we can actually use on one video. These are all the things that make sense together. Here's all the rest of the garbage. How can we make this focus even more? Did some more essentially edits on it. Edits, focus, is it the same thing? I kind of think it is, but anyways. And then, we sort of whittled that down to the point where they're like, and we did a couple of emails back and forth. And I think they actually kind of like that process too, of like editing those things down, because you can see that like garbage just slowly shrink and slowly become this like, oh, this is actually something.
Yeah, that's cool. So what made you have your overarching, did you have a theme or a plan to start? Like, was there an original goal and then you were coming up with ideas around that goal, or how did that work?
Yeah, exactly that, right? So in this scenario, we were replacing videos that were already done in our training. So we had the old one. What do we like? What do we don't like? Ideate on it and grow from there, or shrink from there is maybe the more appropriate phrasing.
Oh, okay. So you were updating some of the content that had either been dated out, I'm guessing, or just didn't look that good anymore?
Yeah. Honestly, even if we were doing a new video, I think I'd probably take like the same approach. Like, hey, here's the time to throw everything. After this, we need to make decisions. Actually, another good story of this too is at one point in time, so I'm editing one video. This is a different video, but another training video. I'm editing the video, and they're like, oh, we should do this. And I'm looking at my sheet of paper that has our plan on it, going like, that contradicts this. So I just calmly said back to them like, hey, this doesn't actually match our plan. Can we do this elsewhere in the training? And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. And you can do this. I also had another video where I'm like, they wanted me to alter essentially what someone had said. And I'm like, personally, morally, that's not what I want to do. So if we have a construction company talking about something, I do not want to alter what their processes are. So we ended up, the compromise, they wanted a title put in. There was nowhere else in any of these videos where we have a title explaining things. So this is the only one where it has a title explaining, but again, made that decision by committee. Like, hey, here's the scenario we're in. This is what we wrote. I think it's this way. The other person thinks it's this way. We need more votes on this. Yeah. And the other two people involved voted. They casted me off the island, and I took other decisions.
Yeah.
So, that's funny. Yeah, let's get to production, Nick. Where do you want to start with that?
So for production, for me, day of, well, I'm just going to go with an interview situation because B-roll.
Production doesn't start the day before for you?
Well, that's called that pre-production. You load up your
recharge everything and test things or whatever.
Yeah, I guess we could include that where you'd make sure everything's going, make sure it's charged, kind of get a list of everything you want to bring.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because I always include that as production. Even when I was shooting wedding videos, like I was telling people, like, nope, that day before is my day. This is like my production day. And they're like, we don't care what you have to say. Just do the job.
I know. Well, this kind of gets down to the hardest part because I'll have people ask me a lot. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but sometimes, it's a 2-hour shoot. Can we do a half day? And I don't do half days because it's my whole day, because I still have to. My production day is the day before. I'm getting all my stuff ready. I'm getting all of that. So whether it's whether I shoot for 2 hours or 8 hours on the actual day doesn't really factor into it. I'm getting off on a tangent here, but does that make sense to you?
I totally wasn't listening, but I'm going to say yes. I'm trying to text our guest we're trying to bring in here and say, join us live. But,
so anyways, production day, I will, I actually load up kind of half of my stuff that I'm okay if it gets stolen, like my light stands, some of my lights, the night before into my car. And then I'll organize with where I store all of my gear, everything that I'm going to bring set aside in a different pile, just because, sometimes you're waking up at 5, 6 in the morning, you're not thinking super clearly. So you could forget the tripod or the wrong stuff. So get all that stuff ready, load it up. And then for an interview situation, I prefer to be there with lots of time to light before the CEO shows up. So I would meet you, the marketing person there, get the room, get everything set up, test out my microphone, I would get you standing in there for the shot. And if I know the person wears glasses, so I'll ask, do they wear glasses? And then if we can get their glasses there, even better. I learned this lesson the hard way because I've had somebody that just wears, I wear glasses. Okay, we'll see. So are we getting reflections off of your glasses? But not all glasses are the same because some glasses sit differently on heads. They sit, it just sits differently. So I would want to even get those glasses, check it all out. Got rid of because your glasses are reflecting right now, right?
The computer screen, yeah.
Which is fine for this, but if you were given an address, you wouldn't want that. And then, so right now, if I just ask you to tilt your chin down a bit, it'll get rid of it. But no person in the world will do that throughout the interview. So I've even asked them, just talk with your chin. They'll do it for the first 20 seconds, and then it just goes back to what's comfortable. So,
do you know what's funny for the glasses scenario? What I've always tried to do is blow light past the glasses. So basically come on the sides and get on the inside of them as opposed to lights in the front.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you go from the sides, I found you need way more diffusion than you'd ever imagined possible, because in order to get that light to still wrap around and not look weird, you always need a little extra light, I found, when you're working with that. Or if you can get up high enough, that works too. But yeah, glasses can be tricky and take some time to finesse. Audio placement. Man, I used those new sticky foams I was telling you about last time. I used those in my last interview. Amazing. Cannot say enough good things about that. The lab, the person was walking, not a single scratch, not a scuffle. Amazing.
I should buy some of those. Friday, the interview we did, the person was wearing a bunny hug, and we threw it in the bunny hug in between. It was good. They sat fairly still, so you didn't really hear much, but occasionally when she would whatever, you would hear a little bit, but nothing major. So it was nothing that ruined anything, that's for sure.
So then load it. Everything's just fairly normal. You get to a place, I'll take all of my gear, find a spot to put it I'm not going to have to move it a bunch of times. And then I'll just start setting up. I like to set up my camera first if I can, and then I'll start setting up all my lights, then set up all my audio, and then work through my lighting routine. My stuff's I just don't really stray that far from the 3-point setup for the most part. So I'll do a basic 3-point lighting setup, bring in the flags if needed, use an extra light to light up some background if needed, but it's fairly basic. And then it's just balancing out your lights, getting your right ratios. I'll do my ratios to eye. I don't use a light meter or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm not much different, Nick. The only thing so far really, I guess that'll add. So my prep, I basically put everything in the same spot, and everything has its own bag, and everything has its things, so that I know where things come and go. And then same on set as well, or on location. Once I put my bag somewhere, every bag goes to that spot. And then, so it's just like I don't know, like a Ford motor plant or something.
Yeah.
You keep the rotation so that everything's the same, and then that way you don't lose stuff. The other thing I'm going to add about light, I, for the most part, will use the majority of practical lighting. And when I mean practical, basically outside or windows and stuff like that. That's pretty much the first thing I'll look for all the time. Again, I'm trying to make stuff up on the fly. That's going to be my best light source 9 times out of 10. So use it.
Yeah.
One thing I'm also going to say about light and outside, I always think it's funny, and I don't know if I'm dumb or what, but like most of the time how I sort of find like where I'm going to shoot, I look like the queen, put a little hand up like this, and I'll sort of twist around looking at it to see where like shadows go on it and stuff, and how it sort of works. And then typically that gives me like, okay, there it is. And that's the direction I should probably shoot. And then I will look. And if I absolutely 100% cannot shoot that direction, and I'll choose, the next best round. I feel like you kind of get about 180 degrees that you can do. And then after that, you're like, wow, this is just going to suck. I'm going to blow out the background.
So sometimes you have to. So I do 2 different styles, basically. The really polished, crisp, extremely professional looking talking head type of shot, where it's the interview talking with that. But then I do, for the awards, when we're going through like 30 different nominees, we got 10 minutes with somebody. I'm bringing in one light on a battery, setting it down, setting up my tripod, wiring up their lav, hitting record and going. Like there's no backlight. I'm doing the same thing that you would do then, where I'm looking at the room. How can I use the sunlight coming in to my advantage? How can I do that versus the time when I've got a couple hours to go in there, light, and I'm essentially manufacturing it more like they would on a movie set than the run and gun. But you could tell the difference unless I get really lucky with the light. Some rooms you get really lucky with the light, but there is a difference in the end product on how it looks.
I also want to clarify one thing. I do not think I understand light that well, but I think I do okay.
It's not so. My idiot-proof way of understanding light is softs and hards, where you put your soft lights in the front and hard lights in the back, and you can make stuff look pretty good as long as but this is where the time comes in, because your backlight, you really need the time to back it off or move it closer, and a few feet here and there can make a huge difference on it looking really professional or really amateur.
Yeah. Your 85 millimeter lens, is there a time you do not use it for these things?
Never.
What are the scenarios where you're forced not to use it?
Room's too small. Yes. So when I say never, I don't mean never. I mean, if the room's too small and it's just like, it would just be an extreme close-up, because if it's a scenario, so I would want to do more of a waist, a little above the waist kind of shot for the most part, because I like to see hands come in to the frame. And then if I only get one crack at it, I can finish in HD, and that'll still give me a punch in if I'm shooting 4K. So I can still punch in if needed, but then I get to see hands still. But there is something to be said about the way YouTubers film, and they'll film wider and up closer and not on that 85, and they show their hands, and it's a very personal shot. I don't do that a lot in the corporate shoots, but I will back off enough to see hands, just because I find that really personalizes it and makes them feel more human and likable.
Yeah. So this next question is kind of cutting almost into post, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Do you shoot 4K finish in 1080?
Depends. Yeah. So this is how I'll shoot in 4K every time. And then if I have to punch in, I'll try to finish HD. And if I don't have to punch in, then I'll finish 4K unless their specs tell me otherwise. Because it's depending on where they're advertising. So if they're advertising on LinkedIn, a lot of times you'll get like, we need a 12 by 1200. So they'll need a square. It's a finish in a square, and the file can't be over 200 megabytes or something like that. And
are you shooting multiple cameras when you do this?
No. Usually I'll just shoot the single camera. And then the trickiest part I've found that's starting to come up now is you'll need a 1920 by 1080 and a 1080 by 1920, which is good until because then you have to zoom in. So you're already punching in. And then if you have to punch in past that, it gets tricky. But the nice thing is currently you're really only watching that 1080 by 1920 on your phone. So even the zoomed in doesn't look egregious, but it does look egregious on your computer screen. So when you as the marketing director is watching it, it's going to look bad until you put it on your phone. And then it's like, oh no, that actually kind of looks all right.
Yeah. I always shoot 4K. Typically will finish in 1080 just so that I can make that jump cut in. Because a lot of times if we don't have like other things to cut to. So I'm making that cut in. If we shoot something with my boss, for an example, and it's all scripted and we can have him just say it, then I won't. I'll leave it as 4K. I am just seeing here. So I think, are we done with production, do you think?
Yeah, is Matt joining us now?
Matt is here.
Let's bring him in. We can finish this after.
Oh, how's everybody? Him.
Wow.
How you
he even lit his room for us. Oh, wait. He forgot to.
Yes, Nick. You shouldn't be slamming him like that. Jeez.
I know. Oh, it's good to see you.
Yeah, Matt. How have you been, buddy?
Yeah, good. Very good. Thank you. Yeah, spring's finally here and we're outside. We're living the dream.
Busy with
Nick,
the kids.
The last time I saw you, you were in an ice cream shop.
Yeah, I know. I was telling Emery about that.
Yeah. It was fun to see you, of all places in Moose Jaw.
Yeah.
What have you been busy doing here, Matt?
Over the last while, I guess my day job, working you.
Just so excited.
Trying to think.
Yes, my day job.
Yeah. No, I think I mentioned to you that I was fortunate to go to NAB this year. That was the huge highlight of the year for me, and probably for the past, I don't know, many years I've been wanting to go and see who goes. And it's interesting who goes from Ravenna, where we live. I was lucky to tag along with Mr. Jeff Nansen and Bill Wright from the Ride. And they kind of took me under their wing. They've done it a few times themselves. And yeah, direct flight to Regina. All in all, it was a great trip. A really, really good trip.
Cool. So how does it...
I was going to say last week we did a whole episode on NAB. You probably haven't seen it. And then we're like, why don't we talk to the one guy we know that went?
Yeah, that's it. Fantastic. Like, it's just... Vegas is kind of like a sensory overload. And then you go to a show there and it's like the first 2 days it took me to actually get around to seeing everything, because there's so many different, there's the 3 sites that it's on, and then there's like, some of them have 2 or 3 floors. So you're actually like, you're not getting anywhere too fast. but yeah, it's kind of once you've done the whole thing, it's for the whole industry, right? So you get anything from stuff that I was going there for camera stuff, for editing stuff, but you also get like the back end of things, like the frames being built for broadcast. You get stream. Anyone is there to try and sell that product. So yeah, it was great. Just mind blown. One of the points to get from the central location to the west location, you go downstairs and you get in a Tesla. It's like a train station, but it's Teslas that are right. And you go through like a wall, like this long tunnel. It's so surreal. You just jump in with a random driver and they take you through and you drive 4 blocks underground. There you go. You get to the next place and looking around that. So it was good. An awful lot of walking, but really, really cool to sort of be there in person and to see all that equipment. Have everything at your, at your fingertips, basically. Yeah, really good. It's hard to stay on track because you'd walk around, I'd be like, oh yeah, I see Canon over there. I'm going to walk over to Canon, and then all of a sudden there's light panels on the side. There's other things on. So you have to kind of keep disciplines on where you want to be, but there are many cool things happening. There's all this new technology. It's amazing. There's a lot of AI talk, and there's a lot of talk about robots. You can see things, you can see studios happening, and you can see, the different new cameras that you've heard about and see it all put together. So very, very cool. I'd definitely do again. And it was a lot cheaper than I thought. The good news is, though, maybe you guys can take it on the road at some point. Just 2 camera guys from NAB. Or if you can't afford to get into NAB, you could just do it from the train station.
Yeah, I'm not sure Nick has that kind of fun money. Sorry, Nick, I cut you off too. You were going to ask a question there. What were you going to ask?
Oh, no. So I'm just curious how... so you said you went with some seasoned veterans. So what did they recommend? Did they recommend you go to all the booths? Did they recommend you go to the talks? I understand there's like the keynote address, but then there's also kind of courses you can take while you're there. What was the recommendation for you as to how to go as a first timer?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to them. I bought the flights on Cyber Monday, so just after the day for flights, just after the Black Friday there, and it was something ridiculous, like $300 Canadian, taxes in, direct flights return. So I talked to Jeff because I know he's done it so many times, but he was the one that sort of monitored the hotels, and he'd recommended for me to go on the Sunday. Now it starts on the Saturday, I believe, and you can even do a bunch of these courses beforehand. But so Sunday, the second day, and it goes until Wednesday half day. So it gave me 2.5 days there. Everything's much cheaper in Vegas when you go through the week. So hotels were cheaper. We stayed off the strip, saved a little bit of money there. Yeah, like
so where'd you stay?
We stayed at what's it called? It's on the tip of my head. It was right by the pits for the F1.
Wow.
It was,
that's all right. So did they say, did you want you to go to the booths, or did they want you to go to the courses, or how? Walk us through your couple of days there. Like, how did you break it down?
Yeah, so we got there. We ended up going into like the central location, so the central exhibition center, and they had they were interested on going. They were doing a few things for the Rough Riders, so a lot of their equipment, and to talk to their vendors, seeing about potential upgrades. So the very first place we went to was their replay systems that they have in the Riders. Went up to them. They were a very small booth, to see what their upgrades were. And then after that, we kind of started off downstairs. Blackmagic's was just huge because, I mean, they've got so many products under their belt now. They're really trying to push their post-production, trying to integrate that all of their post-production into the actual broadcast stuff. So they had all the production cameras, they had how the post-production works with it. They had reunion, editing software, replay systems. And then the amazing thing that I didn't really explore was these booths also had like a live studio setup. So for theirs, they had like this guy that was a motorbike mechanic, and he just sat there all day. I think he was undoing the same bolts and putting it on the motorbike. It's really, really nicely lit. And behind that, you could try any Blackmagic camera that they had, the Ursula, I think, and then the different studio cameras that they had. You could just hop on it like whenever it was free and test out the cameras in return. Then there was another situation going on, or a scenario going on side by side to that, where there was two people, I think, having coffee in a garden setting, so they were talking. So then you could do sort of like your tune shots and things like that and work. So yeah, a big opportunity to try out cameras, try out all of the stuff there. They also had their sort of education side to it, where you could go and listen to keynote speakers talking about specifics on Blackmagic products. Then there was also, while all that was going on, you could do educational things. I didn't sign up for anything. I just wanted to go for the show. But though you could do qualifications, whether through Adobe or we do any education that was provided by any of the vendors. You could sign up in advance and do that kind of stuff more in depth.
Nice.
So yeah, I caught a couple of keynote speakers and stuff going around. They had a lot of I think this year they'd really tried to bring in a lot more content makers and get them talking about how they have their workflow and what they're about and how they're utilizing stuff. So that was interesting. It's just difficult to get around it all and to see it and have an idea.
Yeah.
This is here, but then you need about 25 minutes to walk to the next building to see this.
Nick, I think I figured out the way that we go to NAB. We try to get in as those two people having coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt, kind of want to ask you this too. So we were talking about it before. You're a pretty social guy. I feel like you probably like to network. Was there networking opportunities? Did you do some of that? Did you connect with some cool people?
Well, that's funny that you should mention it, because I know Jeff and Bill on the Monday night and previous years, they'd gone to a Canadian networking night. So it's organized one of the broadcast schools in Toronto, and they bring anybody that's Canadian can buy a ticket. It was by the Flamingo Hotel pool, and so everybody went there. That was the only networking event I went to. So I'd always hang out with Canadians by a pool, and then you could talk to anybody that you wanted, have a little conversation, and you brought snacks around. And so it was fascinating. George Hooker I met for the first time. I don't know whether Nick you may have worked.
Oh yeah, I've known George for years.
Yeah, so he was randomly there, and I never spoke to him before. So yeah, I was.
Oh, cool.
He just bought a camera just before, so I think he was really. It was the new Sony. It's the one with the Vex kind of thing. The one there's been a lot of conversation about. I think it's changed the workflows. Anyway, he'd gone there specifically to talk with Sony this time. I mean, anybody and everybody, people from Toronto. There was a guy wearing Wizards hat around there, so I'm not sure what part of Canada he was from, but I kind of knew I was in the right party when I saw that.
How about too? You mentioned all this new tech stuff. Like, what was the thing that like stood out in your mind that you're like, whoa, Matt Howard needs that?
I mean, I'd need a lot of money. I think that the robotic cameras, like the very precise, and whether you're doing like studio stuff or even integrating these cameras on a set somewhere on location. But a lot of these cameras are able to, with using AI, are able to track. And they had I'm trying to think what booth it was, but they had a bunch of cameras set up. They track like had a table tennis tournament. They were able to track the ball, like hone in on the ball and watch it go, and things like that. The robotic cameras for studios. I know Ross had one where it was kind of it'd do a pattern around the boom, and it would be aware of other things on set. So you get these nice sort of boom shots go on, and it'd be seen some like really, really smooth camera work. There was another one, because I know Nikon have taken over Red now, so they had a setup where you could actually, and I did this. I didn't download the video, which I'm bummed about, but I started my own promo. So I'm driving a 3mm Spider, and there was this camera in front of me that kind of came in into the cab, did a whole turnaround. You saw the dials, and then it came back again. It was doing all this mental. So they do this like 30 to 40 second promo on, and you could go in and get the video and download the QR code. I would be cheap to turn my phone on.
What? So did you talk in it? Like, this is the new Red whatever camera. Is that the type of thing that you were doing? Like,
yeah, I think it was a whole bunch of stuff. So like behind it, I had LED panels that were, it kind of looked like a video game. So you're in this sort of spider simulator, and it was even great to the fact that you had a wind machine on you, so it looked like you were driving. And also the car had a little bit of movement going on. So this camera was just, every time it came in, did the same movement. Had a beautiful cook lens on it. It's the best I've ever looked.
And did you had dialogue too?
Watch it. The what? Sorry?
You had dialogue? You got to talk during the...
No, you could do whatever you wanted. Like,
okay.
You could do the smooth moves, the V sign, you pretending you're driving along.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Cool. I thought that this was your saying, welcome to the new whatever camera, and yeah.
I thought it was gonna be like, hi, my name is Matt Howard. My wife, Tiffany, can you please let me buy this machine for...
Yeah. I was getting there with all the credit cards.
Yeah. Nick, do you have any more questions? I feel like that's kind of good enough. It's cool you enjoyed your time there too, Matt.
I did.
Happy you went down. Happy you had a good time.
I'd highly recommend it. And I think I walked away at the end of it, and I've only spent like $1,400 all in all, like food, accommodation, flights, everything. So it wasn't
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good. And I'm happy what happened in Vegas didn't totally stay in Vegas.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's totally changed it for me, man. If you could go there for $1,500.
Yeah.
That's totally reasonable.
I want to go there to drink coffee, Nick.
Yeah. Well, but I could fix the tires. You drink the coffee.
Yeah. We'll
maybe we get it for free.
Stern letter to them.
Yeah.
Matt, before we let you go, I also want to ask you a question. Are you going to come join us on some other cruise? You know what I'm talking about.
Well, I might have seen you recently.
Yeah.
Never seen that.
No. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think like I'd love to come back. I kind of spoke to I think Ryan and you as well, Nick. I'd love to come back for some of them. And like it really opens your skills up doing crew stuff. So for sure, whether it full time, I don't think it's going to happen. Just with commitments, with family life and things like that. But it's always nice to come back and be welcome back, and to to see if you're still at it. I'd love to do a few games for sure.
Still got it.
Yeah, you get rusty, right? Complacent.
Oh, yeah. Complacent is the right term.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt, anyways, we've got one bit of talk left. It's totally up to you if you want to hang out with us or not. But we're going to talk about post-production, what Nick and I do. Honestly, it's kind of boring compared to our talk we just had with you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm selling it well. Sorry, what's that?
Look forward to hearing all about it. I'll leave you to talk about it. What are you guys still? I'm curious to see what are you still using Adobe Premiere, or what kind of software are you using now?
We're using StreamYard tonight. This is basically doing everything for us. If we'll see how lazy I feel later, but I can pump it through Adobe Podcast. I'll probably do it for the audio version, but it's just easier to kick the video straight out from this and it's done. Kind of.
And it's the same. Is it like a sister company to OBS? Is that what it is?
No, actually, it's like it's like OBS, but like a very stripped down form.
I call it the Apple version of OBS, and OBS is the Windows version of OBS, where way less options, but way more streamlined. So you just fire it up, it works. You can't customize everything the exact same way, but simpler to run.
Is it like a fee based, or how is
it? Yeah, so it's got a fee based. So right now, the only reason we're getting to use it is because different projects that we're working on require it. So that are paying for it. And then once those projects run out for the month, then we no longer have access to it.
Yeah, my work, we use this for our annual meeting and conference when we stream those out, or record them, I guess is what we do now, instead of Zoom. It just gives me more control and what I can do, make really a more polished product. But I will literally be shutting down our subscription Thursday. So this is the last 2 camera guys on this platform. Then we got to figure something else out.
I got to learn OBS again. Try to figure that out.
So you're not going to post this onto YouTube afterwards or not?
No, we will.
You will.
It'll go there. Okay. But it's literally all done here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Post-production.
Yeah. It does everything for us.
That's great.
My TV just became unpaused, apparently.
Okay, I'll let you guys talk post-production.
Perfect.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Matt. Have a great night.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Great. Well, not so much you, Emery, but definitely.
I don't know why I got that. You were the one cutting them down at the start, too. What a guy.
Well, I'm glad to see he brought his lights, and he looked like he was in black and white. Holy cow.
He's still on here. I could bring him back in. Nick, do you want to start with your post-production? I'm going to go over there and try to deal with my TV that came on because I had the game on pause, and apparently
I think you've heard most of my post-production stuff anyway, but yeah. So once
we finished the other one, right? We finished production.
Yeah, close enough. You you film them, blah, blah, blah. We can go into more detail if somebody wants to know more about that.
Wrap up post. I'll catch you on the flip side.
Okay. So after the shoot, what I like to do is I'll back up. So I'll transfer my footage from my SSD, get it onto a hard drive, and then right away back that up to another hard drive. So I've got 2 copies of it while I'm working on it in my raw form. And then I will take my footage from the SSD once I've made sure I've got a copy of it and it's backed up into DaVinci Resolve. And from DaVinci Resolve is where I do all my coloring, and I'll take that footage once I've colored it there, export it into just UHD 4K files, and export them to the files there. Then I'll bring it into Premiere, edit in Premiere, and occasionally I'll have to go back and fix up one or two of the files if they're original, go back to the raw, update the color. But honestly, 9 times out of 10, I don't have to touch after I've exported it, colored it in DaVinci Resolve. Any of the touch-ups I'll tend to do just right in Premiere if it's just a subtle color shift or something like that. And then my latest workflow that I've been doing, Premiere's updated their presets, their audio presets. Have you noticed that? Where you can copy the whole bank of them and paste them, which is very nice. I really appreciate that update. So my latest one that I'll do is I'll export all of my audio only from my interviews, bring it into Adobe Podcast, run Adobe Podcast in it, bring it back to Premiere, and then I will add some final EQ and limiter type stuff with my audio. But that Adobe Podcast audio enhancement has completely changed my workflow for the better with audio. It's so much easier and everything sounds so much better now.
I was just thinking I should do that with these interviews too. I know we've talked about it before and I said I should do it, but I haven't actually done it yet.
If you have any type of background noise, it's not always necessary, but if there's any type of background noise, like that situation where the HVAC didn't get turned off, ran it through Adobe Podcast, and it would have been just as if it had been turned off and I hadn't run it through there.
Oh, wow.
Totally different. And then, so yeah, then my audio adjustments, I'll just run an EQ and I'll run a limiter for the most part. And then now, because of the Adobe Podcast stuff, I don't really run any compression or gating on any of my audio anymore because I don't really need to.
Yeah. I don't think my process is much different with like a few caveats. So I'm always shooting on cards. So the cards are getting loaded onto the machine. The machine gets backed up. I think that's sort of the one key thing that I try not to miss all the time. Make sure everything's got backups, 3 and 3.
Yeah.
And then once everything's on, I throw it all in. Premiere is what we use at work. Final Cut's what I use at home.
Nice. That, you know what, that gives you a little bit of diversity because I'll edit in Premiere all the time, but I feel like I can only speak one language when it comes to editing. So whereas you kind of got a couple different languages you can speak in. And I know with color, there's some things that I can fix and resolve better and some things that I can tweak in Premiere better with color. So having Final Cut thrown into the mix, I'm guessing only helps you.
It's funny, like, I do like Final Cut better for color personally, but it's like, I actually like Final Cut better in general, because for the most part, everything I'm trying to do is like little quick things. And I find Final Cut a lot better for that. Once you get used to its functionality and how it works, it really does speed you up. So I do like it better, for that. I'm also going to say, it doesn't matter which program I'm in. That's what I use. I don't take the extra step of Resolve. I'm doing everything within the native program itself, whatever it is. Again, speed rather than quality is my MO most of the time. So that's why I'm working it like that.
How does that work in the corporate environment for you? Because with me, I'll shoot will wrap up, back up the card, start coloring. Often I'm literally coloring that night. So like I'll get home from the shoot, I'll color, it'll be 10 or 11 at night by the time I walk away from my computer and let it run overnight to finish, like essentially transcoding all those files. But for you, you'd be doing it during your normal work day. But how does that work with coworkers and stuff? Because sometimes, at least for me, some edits come together really quick and some you just really struggle with. So sometimes it would take long and sometimes it would come together short. So how do you explain the time to your boss?
That's a great question that I don't have a good answer for. So time-wise, like I think they all understand that it does take time. And I think maybe the better way to think about it is go back to how I actually work, like in the timeline. So I only, get my time during the day. I can't work till 11 o'clock at night. This is also why speed is important rather than that. But anyways, when I go to the timeline, the first thing I'll do, because I'll do a lot of multicam shoots as well, is I'll sync everything up. So I'll have like usually my wide angled shot on the bottom, my tighter shot on the top. So then I'll sync up all their audio so everything's the same. Then all I need to do is just cut out my portions of the top to make it work. Once that's synced up, I'll have one big long thing. Going to add the Adobe podcast in here now, I think is what I do. Export that audio out, throw it through podcast, bring it back in. It's only going to take me 15 minutes. So
and you'll be blown away at the difference. And
that's the other thing too, like that should already be synced for me. If I'm doing that, just drop it in. That's when I actually start the edit, and I'll copy that first big chunk, copy it into another chunk. We've talked about this before too. And then I'll do my first edits, which is usually taking my voice out of everything.
Yeah.
And then once I have just the person, I'll copy it again, paste it again. And it's the third one where I really break down. And this is where I'll go to the second focus, where it's like going back to the documentation where I had my focus before. What do I need to focus on? And it's picking those parts out. And sometimes I'll keep that copy and paste down that timeline a bunch of times right? Like I think the most I've ever done, it's like 6 times, but in slowly editing that down. Now, inspiration and trying to get that stuff done. There are days where it's hard, but honestly, like I just force myself. So like I'll close my door. I have no reason to close my office door, but I'll close it, put in my headphones, and I just need to start like listening and going through it and cutting things out slowly. And then once you do that for 5 minutes, the next 10 minutes easier. And then once you got that 15 in, all of a sudden an hour goes by. Where you mentioned working with people. So when I'm editing, I'm like in my own zone. Like it's Emery time. That's it. But with coworkers, like where I really get an advantage is I do have one other communications person that works with me. So I'll get something down. Say we have 30 minutes of video. I'll cut it down to like 10 minutes or more, right? Like maybe to 5 minutes, and say our goal is 3 minutes. I will then take that, whatever chunk it is, export it out, send it to my coworker and like, hey, I need help on this. And thankfully, Amber, again, who I mentioned before, she is really good at taking those words like, hey, can you take this out? Can you rearrange this and stuff? And she clued in right away as well with like, if you give me that time, 1 minute and 53 seconds, then I know where to do it. And then I go back and copy and paste a new thing in the timeline. There's times where I'll just flat out disagree with her because I know I can't do it or whatever it is. But typically I'll make her edit, and 9 times out of 10, it's better.
No.
So it's actually like, it's always beneficial to have that extra person, which is kind of nice. So there's that moment of solitude, and then there's the moment where you sort of reach out for those final cuts down. And then after that is when we actually do, when I'll go through like my first steps of like approval from whoever needs to approve it, or final revisions for whoever needs to have final revisions.
So in your case, is it kind of your CEO or is it somebody else, or how do your final revisions work? Because often I'll work with a marketing. So actually, often I'll work, depending on the company, I'll work with somebody in the marketing department, and then either the director of marketing or another type of director or some type of committee will then approve it. So I'm working with somebody like you, but then somebody above you is getting the final say. So it sounds similar to kind of what you're doing with you and your coworker Amber, or doing that together.
A lot of times, so when, say it's like a social media video, me and Amber are the final line on that, right? It doesn't go much further than that. Unless there's something like super sensitive that it needs to be, but the chances of that are slim. And then, for an example, the SJHL videos that you helped us out with. So you were contacting me, but the people I was going to after the fact, well, Amber was one of them, and then Ed and Colin. So my immediate boss and the CEO of our company. And honestly, the only reason Colin was involved was because he was in it.
Yeah. So, you're right. Because often the CEO wouldn't even be involved in stuff on that level unless it was a massive project on it.
Yeah. In the case of Friday, we're doing, and actually I'm going to backtrack too. So in some of our other training videos, so we've worked with other companies or groups. So I'll do the cut with Amber. Then that revision will go out to those companies, those groups, and probably to like our staff, if there's any staff that need to have some say in it. So I talked about having our like committee of 4 people. Those 4 people would have that say in it. Then I'll do some revisions for that, send it out. And this is like the last, like, hey, this is it. People outside of the office, they get one chance. That's it. Our office, I'll maybe update things a second time. But like, other than that, it's like, no, you guys, like, look, we need to do this. I can't keep redoing this. Yada, yada. They get an earful from me. It's a nice earful, but they get an earful.
Well, so I know if I can ever get a chance to talk to a committee before they're reviewing it, the thing that I'll always say is, look, you're here to review it, but just because you're here, you don't have to prove your worth by finding something wrong with it. Like, if you find something wrong with it, great, but you don't have to make up something that's wrong with it. It's okay to just say, hey, it looks great.
Yeah.
I'll try to on the day I would word that better than I just did now. But I think at the end I kind of got to it, because it is okay to say it's great. If there's a spelling error or there's something that you've noticed that's not right, please speak up, but you don't have to find something wrong with it just because you're here.
Yeah. I had like one instance where it's sort of the same thing, and I do have like a preamble that is like, hey, look, like, if it is something major, let us know. Like, this is pretty much final. And I had like one instance where they threw it around their office, and they're like, our communications would really like this. And I was just like, oh my God. So the whole video is fine, and you just want a logo, essentially, was the change put into it. I was just like shaking my head, but at the same time, I'm like, whatever, this is a 2-second change. I'm just do it.
Oh yeah, totally fine.
Anyways, that's...
I've just found, and I've gotten better at this over the years, but I used to really struggle with the changes that made the video less impactful, but made sense from kind of a strategic or corporate sense.
Yeah. I talked about my moral decision before with the title.
Yeah.
And it was exactly that.
Yeah, those are hard decisions, especially you might have an easier time with it, but I think that I would probably veer slightly more on the artsy side than you. I'm guessing. Well, no, you're pretty artsy too, but you've kind of got a little bit more of a critical thinking brain that can separate those two things.
Do you know what I'm going to tell you, Nick? It's all about your ego. You need to just set your ego to the side sometimes.
Maybe that's it.
What I also think makes it easier, and I'm going to do more of this, but is decision by committee on those things. So like I had said, when, hey, we have two opposing opinions here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it to vote from some other people and let them pick it. And, you need to, like I said, put that ego aside and be like, you know what? I'm wrong in this scenario.
Yeah.
That's fine. Or do you know what? Even if you're right, still just be like, look, it's fine. We had more than one person pick this other way.
Yeah.
So it must be that way for a reason, even if you wholeheartedly disagree with it.
You know what? I was just reading something the other day that being open, it's being open and receptive to criticism is a lot better of a character trait than not being open and receptive to criticism. Like you want to be in the place where you're able to receive the criticism and literally put the ego aside, like you said. That's a good way of putting it. I never even put two and two together that way, because I'd always kind of thought, oh, it's more of the art. I never realized that it could have been me that's standing in the way of it. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And honestly, too, you need to learn not to take that personally, right? Because they're choosing a different way doesn't mean you're terrible or bad or wrong, right? Necessarily. It's just the other way, and that's how it's going to get done.
Yeah, you're right. And that's when you're in the corporate world, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. So does that kind of wrap up our...
Yeah, I think it's already 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
We got to wrap it up.
It's a really long episode already, but I do want to have a rant before we cut us off for the night.
Okay, yeah, I can't wait.
So you pointed this out to me a few weeks ago, and I did not understand what you were saying. But essentially, Facebook is now making us post videos directly to it. Or at least we're too dumb to figure it out. If anybody knows how we can continue posting our YouTube links in there and having that work, please let us know. But ultimately, Facebook is making us post videos in Facebook now. Who wants this? Why is here's my rant. Facebook is doing this because it gives them more statistics. They are not doing it for you. They're not doing it for anybody else. And it's complete crap. And they constantly make these changes that are not for the people that use it. And it makes me frustrated. And I'm like, why do we even use this? Nobody wants this. That's my rant.
I love it. And you know what? Apple's fighting back to them, although Apple doesn't own YouTube. But do you know what just showed up on my phone today? I think it was literally today. It said, Facebook has had access to all of your photos for over 6 months now. Would you like to continue this?
How does like a company get by when they so infuriatingly do things that their people do not want?
You know why I use Facebook? For the stupid marketplace.
I got a actually really funny take on that before you say that, but this is my example of Facebook right now. So I'm decked out in this Edmonton Oilers gear. Yeah. Facebook's like, no, you are a Vancouver Canucks fan. And I'm like, no, but I want to be the Oilers fan. Anyways, I legitimately have it written down on this paper. You ready for this? I read an article the other day. This isn't my own idea. Is Facebook Marketplace the most wholesome place in social media? Think about it. It kind of maybe is.
It maybe is once. So I would say it was. Scams have started to take over Facebook Marketplace. So I think you're true, but that won't be true in the future unless they can figure that out quick.
I think you're absolutely right. It won't be true in the future because Facebook's going to do things for Facebook and not for us. But right now, I feel like Facebook Marketplace is actually the very heart of what started Facebook to begin with in social media in general. And it's like, hey, connect with these people. You actually, by the end of your, it's totally free. It's totally up to you. You use it how you want. And at the end of each interaction, you probably meet some people. Like you're actually social.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Place in social media.
I've bought and sold so many things on Facebook Marketplace. You know what I do though? Because I feel kind of bad because I've had so many random your friends pop up in your feed. I'm not going to name names, but they're selling lens bags all the time, and it pops up in your feed, and they're selling little mini jolly tripods that got 3 little rollerblade. I don't know, the random people. So with camera gear, I probably wouldn't click this button, but quite often I'll click the hide from friends. You ever click that one?
No, never. Actually, here's the honest truth. My mom gets frustrated because of my security policies. She can't share them.
Oh, your marketplace, Facebook Marketplace stuff?
Yeah, she can't share them. She's like,
really?
I can't share these. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's my privacy settings, but yeah. And she gets so mad.
I think she's doing it wrong. Because how could you not share a marketplace?
I don't know. I just think that's how wholesome my mom is too sometimes. She's just like, well, I just want to help you sell them.
Yeah.
I'm not selling a crappy dolly for a camera. I should call it crappy. It's a really good dolly.
Yeah.
It's just small in Lanigan, Saskatchewan. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Your mom must think you're hard up for cash or something like.
She did actually ask someone to. I don't know if she was joking or serious, but either way. Yeah. Cool, Nick. We should wrap it up here. I'm going to let you fill your egomania and have the last word of the show.
Last word of the show. So
I was just expecting you to rip me for saying egomania.
No. You probably hit it on the head there, right? Because I'd been but I'd been standing up for the art and kind of integrity of the project. And not so much.
Someone's got to do that too, though.
But you did kind of point out that I might not be standing up for the integrity or art of the project. That it might just be my ego. That's because I decided it that way. It needs to get done that way. So I think you're right, Emery. That's the ending word is be receptive to criticism, and another way to do it. And at the very least, even if you make the project worse, which you could, you're still going to learn how to relate and interact with people better because it doesn't always have to be just done one way.
Nothing else you want to say? Thanks for watching, everybody.
I thought you usually do that, but no, I'm
going to let you have the last word. And then
sorry. No, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.